Hello people, normally I create videos in the morning, but I have to get this off of my desk. What we say about existentialism and existential causes and death in general sucks because it's not true. No research paper has ever found that thinking about death gives us a chance to create meaning. We follow more down the Jason Silva. We more follow down the Jason Silva rabbit hole of this is all meaningless. What's the point of even trying? Jordan Peterson talked about this on the H3 podcast about just do whatever you want, just enjoy your life. No one's gonna care in 1,000 years. That's the mentality we have. There was a research paper, I don't know if it's fake or not, published on the existential crisis subreddit about this, and what it found is that most people don't care. They start to not care about life, which means they become addicted to a substance and then they commit suicide. I know, controversial, but that's the findings of the paper. There's even an article in Psychology Today about this. When people go down the existential rabbit hole, they don't find any answers, they become depressed, suicide. This is what happens. Now, the perfect song that encapsulates this is In the End by Linkin Park. Just listen to the lyrics. It just sounds of existential dread. What did Chester Bennington do? He hung himself. Granted, he also had depression, but I don't know if the depression was induced by an existential crisis. But it sure seems that way. He also had a friend die of cancer, and his stepfather died of cancer, and Chris Cornell also hung himself. Another interesting fact is that there's a screenshot of a tweet of all things going around here saying, in westernized cultures, we believe in the need to achieve and to reach goals in order to justify our existence, or something to that effect. I don't find that succeeding because I'm just existing. I don't have a job. I'm living with my parents. It doesn't provide me any meaning sitting at home all day doing nothing. Yes, I'm making these videos, but that's something. There's a thing Psych2Go posted about a busy brain is a happy brain. My brain's not busy at the moment. Also, think of the pandemic. How much free time did we have? Were we really that much happier? Or did we start complaining immediately about how much home time we have? A busy brain is a happy brain. And people are talking about creating meaning by doing volunteer work. Okay, great, but those people are going to die someday, probably for nothing. You can see how these thought spirals can end in depression. So these existential thoughts, we just need better help around existentialism. I made a previous video about this, about how more intelligent people in an IQ test, people who have more wisdom or more emotional intelligence, all of these are more likely to have an existential crisis. And since our society is heading in a direction where we have higher intelligence people, even though it's starting to hit a bit of a wall, and we are beginning to become more wise, whatever that means, or more empathetic, we will get to a point where everyone is going to have an existential crisis. And our mental health system is struggling enough with it as it is. How are we going to cope with the influx of the people who need this in the future? Trust me, in the next, I think 5 years, it's going to be a massive spike in existential related suicides. And on this note, when people stop sharing that clip of Afterlife, where Ricky Gervais's character tells one of his office workers, if you watch a movie, do you pause it and stop watching before it ends because it's going to end? I haven't watched the series yet, so I don't know. But correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't his character suicidal in the series? I'm just saying. There seems to me a bit of the cat calling the kettle black moment there. Another song that deals with this is More to Life by Stacey Orrico. No, where was I? Wasn't talking. Oh yeah, Stacey Orrico, and she went on to do charity work. Good for her. Darling in the Shadows referenced a similar existential dread when he was talking about his review of 7 Years by Lucas Graham, where he talks about another song called 100 Years by Fire for Fighting, where he says, we're all gonna die, nothing matters in the end, and it's this and that. Very nihilistic way of thinking. I can't help but think all the research and thinking about how we think about our own mortality and meaning to life has revealed the opposite of how philosophers say we should behave. Should be kinder, more moral, try to be happier, but it doesn't seem to invoke those feelings. It invokes the opposite. So why are we continuing to craft this narrative? It makes no sense whatsoever to craft a narrative that doesn't exist. You go to r/cancer, look at the people there. We often have this Hollywood view of people dying happily, slowly, but those people aren't happy. I mean, a third of all cancer patients, whether it be because of said existential dread or the treatments of chemo, develop depression. So why are we crafting these narratives? They're not helpful. Not serving anybody. They're not helping anybody. They're doing exactly the opposite. The best narrative, I was not aware of that, we have surrounding death is, you won't care when you're dead. Great. And the best existential narrative we have is The Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus. Great. The guy being tortured for eternity. None of these narratives serve any real help, any real purpose, if you will. So why do we keep telling them? I just spoke about what happened to Chester. I get in the end is actually about a breakup, but you can also see this really has somebody going through an existential crisis. We know how that story ended. Why are we crafting these narratives when they clearly aren't working? However, I also referenced the Psychology Today article, and I think I may have referenced the research paper that was leaked on r/existential crisis, which found that substance abuse is how people cope with this. So, can we please stop the BS and actually come up with things that work? Because this clearly isn't working for anybody, anywhere.